is about your classroom, not about English in general, okay? Do they like coming to your class? And they probably do. Most English students like their teachers, okay? This is normal. Most mathematics students like their teachers, but you know, it's a different situation. English classes are, generally speaking, the most popular classes in schools everywhere in the world, okay? There's something different about English. English teachers are different from other teachers. They talk more, they ask for more responses. Mathematics teachers don't normally ask you what you did at the weekend, okay? There's something about learning maths which is different. Learning English is a lot of fun. But Zoltán Dernier, this Hungarian academic, came up with 5 motivational factors. What is it that students like about being in their English class, okay? I'm going to wait. Number 1 we'll do last. Number 2, the teacher has a good relationship with us. It seems very simple, okay? But students like it if the teacher is not your friend. The teacher can't be your friend, but the teacher should not be a robot.
Should be friendly,
right,
but not a friend.
That's a very good way of, can I use that next time? I like that.
As you
the
like.
Teacher should be friendly, but not a friend. I think that's very good. Okay. And this is really important as well. That not just the teacher isn't just delivering information. The teacher is giving you the chance to think for yourself, to imagine things, to create new sentences, new ideas in English. Not just repeat the sentences that I give you. This is important too. When a teacher comes in and says, you did really good homework, and the teacher smiles and shows enthusiasm for your progress. Students like that a lot. Not, okay, not bad, better than last week. That's not very nice from the teacher. The student wants to see just a little smile when they've done better. It's a small thing. And this is also important, that when you walk into the classroom, you don't feel uncomfortable, worried. You feel okay. Things are going to be okay in the English classroom. But what is number 1? What is the number 1 motivating factor for our students when they come to the class? It is this, that the teacher is enthusiastic. Oh dear, that's very bad news, I think. The idea that the most important thing in the classroom is that you walk in and go, hello, how are you? I'm enthusiastic today. You can't do that every day, can you? It's impossible. It's very difficult to be utterly... Look, as I say, you can get this from my blog later. Take photographs, that's lovely. I feel like a Hollywood movie star when you do that. Okay. So the idea is... Now, this is another researcher. Very nice lady. She's my wife, actually. Okay. And she did some research with students who have a native speaker teacher and a non-native speaker teacher. Not in the classroom at the same time, but as part of the same course. So her research for her master's was about students who have native speaker teachers and non-native. It's very interesting research what she found out. And I remembered from her research something about enthusiasm. So I went through her MA thesis and I found this quotation. Look at this. I'd rather have an enthusiastic teacher who isn't a native speaker, even if her English isn't perfect, than a native speaker who doesn't seem very enthusiastic. That was said by a 16-year-old student in Romania. Isn't that fantastic news? Yeah. That's really, really good news, okay? I'm a native speaker, you're non-native speakers, but the more important thing for the students is that we show some enthusiasm. Oh dear, we're back to enthusiasm again. So the idea being, every morning we wake up going, yes, I'm an English teacher, how exciting is that, you see? And that's just not possible. It's just not possible every day of your working life. It simply isn't possible. For me, the last time I had a full-time English teaching job was about 30 years ago now. Okay, I've been working part-time as a teacher since then. I had 8 contact hours a day in 3 different colleges in London. Actually, different parts of London. So on a Monday morning, I look like this. Do anybody know this painting? This is a painting by a Norwegian artist called... Huh?
All of us.
All of Yes, exactly. This is reality. Monday morning particularly, oh my God, here we go again. it can be very tiring. Okay, this is a painting called The Scream by a Norwegian artist called Edvard Munch. Okay, this is the, if you know The Simpsons, that's the Simpsons version of it. Okay, so this is the reality. The reality is not that teachers go, yes, I'm an English teacher every morning, that you start the morning, it's tiring, and then hopefully during the day you get some response from your students which give you some energy. And this is the key for me. You have to find ways that the students become responsible for the enthusiasm and the energy in the classroom. Okay? So, I've come up with 10 motivational strategies that might just work. These are ways of activities, ways of doing things in the classroom, activities in the classroom, which hopefully will energize your students and energize you too. Now, the first one is to make your students curious. Make your students curious. What do I mean by this? Well, often you just say, okay, good morning everybody, open your books at page 26 and there's a reading text of some kind, okay? That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Before I go on, does everybody have this kind of technology in the classroom?
Yeah.
Can you can project images onto the screen. Okay, so here's an idea. You've got a reading text, an unusual reading text, and there's an image from the reading text. If the students open the book, they see the image, they see the reading text, why not separate them to start with? I'm going to show you an image now, but the important thing is I'm not going to say, what's he doing, what has he just done, what's he going to, all that stuff, If you can get your students to stop worrying about what you will ask and just think about their reaction to this picture. I'm going to show you a picture. I want you to tell me and tell your friends first around you, what's your first reaction to this picture? Here's the picture. A bizarre picture. Look at that. Think about your first reaction and talk to somebody around you about your first reaction to this picture. What's your first? Come on, talk, talk, talk. Everybody talk. No silence in this room.
Think about this one. Hungry crazy man.
Very strange picture. No, I want your first reaction. Don't think about teaching. Try and get teaching methods out of your mind. Think of yourselves in the student's position. When you saw that picture, what was your first thought? What was your first thought? He's crazy. Excellent answer. He's crazy. Anything else? He's showing off. Wow, you're 14 years old, you're in my class, you know this expression, showing off. Excellent.
Hungry crazy man.
A hungry crazy man. Okay. Any other thoughts? Angry or hungry?
Hungry.
Hungry. Ah, it reminds you of scary movies, yeah?
Someone struggling
Someone struggling.
in his life.
Oh, that's very interesting. But that was your first thought.
Yes.
This man has problems in his life. Excellent.
I thought of the Tintin Man, the weird Tintin Man.
Oh, the weird man in the Tintin comic strip. Okay, brilliant.
He's frustrated.
He's frustrated. Wow. And you're all 14 years old. That's very, very sharp. Okay, that's very good, yeah?
Maybe he's a teacher.
Yes?
Why torture yourself?
Why torture yourself? Fantastic. That's so much better than me saying, okay, look at this picture now. What's he doing? Where do you think, forget all that stuff. For the first impression. And if you can separate photographs using your technology, very simple, okay, it's very, very helpful. Would you like to know more about this man?
Yeah,
Are you a bit curious?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so here's a bit of information. His name is Michel Lotito. He was born in 1950, remember that, in a place called Grenoble. Anybody know where Grenoble is? In France, thank you, it's in France. He's known as Monsieur Mange-Tout. Anybody speak any French? What does that mean?
Eating everything.
Eating everything, Mr. Eat Everything. He eats metal and glass. This is a true story, this is a real man.
Yeah.
He can eat a, what? He can eat a bicycle in 6 days? What? Would you like to read something about this man now?
course.
We don't have to. Would you like to read something about this man? You don't sound very enthusiastic. I want the enthusiasm. Yeah, you're curious, good. But I want to hear the enthusiasm. I'm the teacher who needs the enthusiasm of his students, okay? And you're 14 years old. Don't forget, you're 14 years old. Would you like to read more about him?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, but before we read about him, I'd like to ask you 2 questions. Here are the questions. Which is the easiest part of a bicycle to eat, do you think? Okay?
Tired.
Which is the most difficult?
Chair.
Which is the easiest? No, talk to each other first. Which do you think is the easiest? And here are the words. Here are the words. Handlebar, frame, seat, pedal, wheel, spokes. Those are the things there. Spokes, chain, and tire. Okay, talk to each other. Talk to each other. Come on, talk.
Come to the conclusion.
Sit or tired.
Sit at the tire. You are middle brother.
And maybe the man who's sitting on the seat.
It's easier.
Tires were the easiest to eat, yes.
Okay. Easiest part of the bicycle to eat. The seat. You think the seat? Yeah, it's soft, and you can cut it up and maybe cook it with some mushrooms or something. The easiest is, any other thoughts? The seat?
Tired.
Good idea. Yeah, nice and soft. What about the most difficult?
Chain.
Chain.
Yeah.
The chain.
Of course. Awful, isn't it? Awful idea. Right. And what about those things on the wheel? Remember the word?
Sticks.
What are they called?
Spokes. Spokes.
Well done. I imagine that's quite difficult. So let's now, having done this preparation, again using this the board so I can separate. It's so useful to separate the photograph from the text. Here we are. Michel Lotito has been eating metal and glass since 1959. Do you remember what year he was born? 1950. So how old was he when he started with this? What were his parents thinking? 9 years old he started doing this. Doctors have x-rayed his stomach but remain mystified. Mystified, does that mean they understand or they don't understand?
Mystery.
His diet has included 10 bicycles, a supermarket trolley, 7 TV sets, and a Cessna light airplane which he ate in Caracas, Venezuela. This is amazing. He can eat a bicycle in 6 days. I start with the frame. Oh, so he thinks the frame is the easiest, the middle part. I saw off a piece in a ring as wide as my finger. I eat the handlebars in the same way. Then I cut up the chain and the spokes. The hardest part is the tires. How bizarre is that? Eating a tire isn't as easy as eating the metal parts of the bicycle, he says. It's like eating a kilo of feathers. Another advantage, feathers. Do we know the word feathers?
Yeah.
Let's put an image. But let's put an image, okay? You see? The advantage of this kind of screen work. I'm not big into technology. I'm a very old-fashioned teacher. I like doing activities with pieces of paper, with interaction. But I realize the value of the technology when it comes to reading material, to separate things, to separate the reading and the picture, for example. That was fantastic. You were a wonderful class, and I love this class. I'm going to look forward to teaching you for the next 6 months. Okay? Okay. So there he is again. It all started with your personal feelings, and this is interesting for a student. The students, after a couple of weeks in a class, they get used to the system. They see a picture, the teacher asks questions about it. It's what happens. So they're looking at the picture thinking, what question will the teacher ask me about this? You know, they get into that habit. Just tell me your feelings about it, how you feel about this picture. And you can have lots of pictures of animals, pictures of cartoons. How do they respond to them? Okay, now this is a bit more simple. Now, in most course books, they will have what we call a pre-reading activity before you read. Look at the picture, what do you think the story is about? The problem in the book is the picture is on the same page as the text. So they look at the picture and then they look at the text. And it's a good skill, but it's nice to separate. There's the picture. So again, you're my 14-year-old students. What do you think this story is going to be about? Just check with each other. What do you think the story will be about?
Talk to think about car accidents.
Okay, what's the story about?
The police tape here.
A car accident. Any other thoughts? A car accident?
Maybe a crime.
A crime?
Yeah, but that's why the police had.
Oh yeah, because there's a police thing. Yeah, police. Very good. There's a police thing there. Could be a crime, car accident, crime. Any other thoughts? And it's an advertisement for a car. Could be an advertisement. Yeah. Don't use this car. It's really bad. Use this car.
Warning.
Oh, a story about a drunk driver. Oh dear. Maybe it's a warning lesson.
Yes.
It's a warning. Fantastic. You see? So I've separated the picture so you haven't seen the text. But here are the first 5 lines of the text. Just the first 5 lines. When a 6-year-old boy from Virginia, USA, missed the school bus, he wasn't happy. He always had breakfast at school and he didn't want to miss it. He had an unusual and reckless. This is a book that I wrote, and when the words are a bit more difficult, we put them in blue so you know it's a difficult word. Solution to his problem. So this boy, he missed the school bus, he wanted to go to school. So and again, talk to each other. What was his solution? What do you think? Don't tell me, tell each other. So what do we think his reckless solution was? He drove his father's car. He's 6 years old. He stole it. He stole his car from his father. So it's his mother's fault. So let's see what it says. Here's the headline. 6-year-old boy drives mom's car to school. Okay. 6-year-old boy drives mom's car to school. So now the important thing again about the technology. I did this with cut and paste from my own book. I took a screenshot of the page. Cut. Took me 3-4 minutes. No time at all to produce this PowerPoint for the classroom. But now the point is that if your students are teenagers, they quite like looking at screens. Okay, yeah. They prefer looking at screens to looking at books. But we need them to look at the books. So we've looked at this, and I say, right, screen off, open your book. Whose is that?
It's not a music. It's not music.
It's not music. Is that called prayer? Is that called prayer?
For praying.
Call to prayer.
Are you okay? Mark, continue? Okay. Right. So you see the point what I've done. I started the activity on the screen. I switch off the screen. The students go, where's it gone? I want to read the rest. It's in the book. Oh, okay. And they want to open the book. It's a nice idea. Using the screen to get ready. Remember, my first point was making your students curious about the contents. Okay. So that's ways of doing it. So, and also, remember, these were all pre-reading activities. It's so much better to find something to do with the reading text before you read it. Don't just start reading it from the top, okay? Just give the students an idea which tells them something about what's going to happen in the reading activity. Okay, so here's another way to make you curious. Can you all please stand up for a moment? All please stand up. And you need to get into teams of 5. Get into teams of 5 and give yourself a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You boys can come in here and you can have 2 could be the same number. 4. Yeah. No. You'd be a group of 5, but you need to be numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 of you can have the same number. Don't worry. Okay. Groups of 5. Okay, and give yourself a number. Okay. Okay. Put your hand up, number 1. Put your hand up, number 2. Put your hand up, number 5. Listen, children, listen carefully to the instructions. Listen carefully to the instructions. I'm going to show you 5 images. The first image, only number 1 looks at the image. Everybody else turns away. Okay? Number 2, only number 2 looks at the image. Make sense? Okay, so number 1, look at the screen. Everybody else, please turn around. Everybody turn around apart from number 1. Everybody turn around. Okay, number one. Are you ready? Number one.
Only number two. Everybody has to
Can you
look
boys move out a bit so they can see?
here. We are number one.
Move. I know, but move away so that everybody can see.
Only number one looks at the board now. Only one. Where is one? Who's one?
Sorry, guys. Right. Number one. Are you ready? Here's number one only. Here's your image. There's your image. Memorize the image. See what it is. And turn away, number one. Turn away. Number one, turn away. And number two, look at the screen now. There's your image. This is the image just for number two. Number two. Okay, there's your image. Turn away. And turn away, number two. Alright, number three, look at the screen. There's your image. Okay? You boys should be looking at all of them. Right. Number three, turn away. Number four, look at the screen now. That's your image. And look away. And finally, number five, look at the image. Number five. And look away. Okay, now everybody can look at the screen. This has nothing to do with the activity. This is my granddaughter. See? All right, don't sit. I say sit down. Okay, now,
Also British.
the point is, you've seen 5 different images. I want you to tell the other people in your group what you just saw and find something, some idea, which connects the 5 images. Okay? So, describe it.
What's number two? Attack. This is fine. What about this?
An abstract idea which connects all those things. The president has it. Somebody who's strong. Yes, something like that. Okay, guys, thank you. You're trying to find two common. What's the common idea? What do you think? Okay, shush. Wait. Sorry. I'll ring the bell next time.
This activity that is trying to, to get us more curious, to build up our own story, we make it to see out, to infer what is it going to be about, and preparing us to see for the actual story behind the pictures.
Well, there's no story behind the pictures. There's just the pictures, right? In this case, there's no reading text. But what is the connecting idea?
I see something.
Huh?
This is what we connected.
Yeah.
What we made connection. Okay. We saw the volcano with the tanker, the lifting, waterfall, and Barack Obama. So this is what we inferred that. Because of lack of water in the world, there.
She went
the
faster.
United
She went.
States, let's say it's the leader of the world. Obviously, a war erupted.
عندك خيال واسع.
Yes.
This is a lovely idea to connect it all in a story. But that's another activity.
Yes.
To make a story from the 5. That's lovely. But generally, all those 5 connect to one word, which is
Power.
power. It doesn't matter if you didn't all agree. It doesn't matter. The point is, just for a moment, you're an impossible class. You're so noisy. I like noisy class. Noisy classes are fantastic. But think about it. I asked you to look at a picture, and then I said, describe the picture to the other people. But if I just said, describe your picture, you'd go, yeah, okay. But I said, find a connection. And that was what made you curious. So think about ways in which students are naturally curious, but they're also naturally lazy. The fact is, many students walk into the classroom going, okay, go on, whatever you're going to say today, I'll listen, and then maybe I'll sleep. And that's the natural student reaction, which is understandable, but we want to engage their curiosity, and if we get them curious, they will not go to sleep. They will definitely not go to sleep. Okay, her name is Sadie, that's my granddaughter, as I said. Bye-bye, Sadie. Right. Now, number 2, challenge them. I'm afraid you have to stand up again, but stay in the same... Can you all come on, stand up, everybody stand up. It's good for you, it's good for you. It's a good exercise. And stay in the same groups with the same number, okay? Listen to the instructions very carefully. First of all, who is this man? Can you boys, you big tall boys, go and stand in the corner. People can see. People can see. Who is this man? Abraham Lincoln. Who's this man? John Kennedy. Can you tell me anything about these two men?
President. Both are president.
Both of them were assassinated. It's terrible when you're an English teacher. That's a perfect sentence. Both of them were assassinated, so I say, excellent. You think, no, it's not excellent. They were assassinated. That's horrible. You find yourself saying, you say, well done for a good piece of English. The example I always remember, when I taught in Spain, one of my students came in on Monday morning. I said, Juan, where were you on Friday? And Spanish students never use the past tense. They never use the past tense. So he said, I go to my grandmother's funeral. And I said, go? He said, sorry. I went to my grandmother's funeral. I said, very good. I thought, no, it's his grandmother's funeral. It's not great. Be careful. All right, now listen carefully. There are some strange things which connect the lives and deaths of these two men. Very unusual information. I'm going to show you 10 facts about them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? If you're number 1 in your group, only read number 1 and number 6. Good. If you're number 2, 2 and... If you're number 4, 4 and... Not 8, that's mathematics. 4 and 9. 3 and 8, 5 and 10. Do you get the picture? However, the problem is, I'm only going to show the information for 7 seconds. 7 seconds, okay? So are you ready? Here comes the first lot. Don't try and write it down, just memorize it. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's gone! Oh no! Complain! Okay, here's the second lot. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Not enough time, teacher. Come on, complain. Would you like more time? Okay, I'll give you 5 seconds this time, okay? So here's the first ones again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And the last one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Tell people in your group what you just learned.
This one, number 1. Number 2? Who's number 2? Who's number 2? You are number 2.
we cheat رجعوا الفيديو
no. For number 4 is related to Kennedy. You're cheating, yeah? You took a snapshot. No, where is it? Look. Why are you looking at your screen? There is some similarities in their names, and they met in a theater. I think. Just I remember.
I think in a theater.
both of them died before their trial or something like that.
Trial?
Yeah.
They were assassinated. No trial.
Yes, but before their trial. They had maybe they had problems.
No. Kennedy was very loved by Americans. And he was assassinated in the street. He was shot in the street.
Come on, boys, you can take your seats again. Here's everything, so you can now, in a relaxed fashion, now I give you the text.
Before the trials. Oh my God. So they needed to be tried.
Everything is absolutely incredible.
No,
1846, 1946, 1860, 1960. Both of them were shot on
the assassins, yeah.
Extraordinary information. The connection. Why did I make it so difficult for you then? Because it's Friday afternoon. It's Friday. No, Friday you don't go to school. No. Okay, it's Thursday afternoon. Okay, and you're a lovely class, but you are looking a bit like puddings today. I don't know why. It's after lunch, Thursday afternoon, and you're looking like, just don't make too much noise, teacher. I'm having a quiet time here. You know. Well, that's no good. That's no good. It's okay. You know, you can't shout at your students. Come on, wake up. That's worse. They feel really bad. But find a way to challenge them. Get them out of their seats and challenge them. You people seem to want to sit down a lot. Students prefer standing up, right? But you can't stand up for 45 minutes, but you can't sit down for 45 minutes either. Try and find a way, if you're teaching teenagers particularly, to find a way for them to get up and move around just for 5 minutes in the middle of the class. Okay, so the message is this. If your students are looking tired, do something to take them out of their chairs and, as I say, out of their comfort zones. But it's safe. It's a bit difficult, but it's safe at the same time. Okay? That's my main message. Now, that reading text was 10 bullet points. Okay? But any reading text, you can make a bullet point, a pre-reading task about any reading text you could do with 5 little bullet points. And 5 or 10, and give your students a very small amount of time to memorize them. Okay. Memorizing is good. Short-term memorizing is good for you. Okay. That was number 2. Number 3. Devolve responsibility. That's an unusual word.
Yes.
Devolve responsibility. What do I mean? Yes, give responsibility to the class. How many students do you have in your class normally? 25? Okay, 25 to 30. That's okay. That's okay. I've been doing a lot of teacher training in China, where middle school and high school, normally they have between 70 and 80 students in the class. Okay, so but Chinese students are okay. They're quite motivated. They're hardworking. Okay, but the point about this is, in every class, there are some good ones, some medium ones, and some bad ones. Terrible to say. The students aren't here. I'm going to say there are some bad students. They're not bad people. They're just not necessarily very good at learning English. They might be fantastic at maths, but not that good at English. Now, the thing is, how long does it take you, as a teacher, to know who are the best students in a class? With a new class, 1 class, 2 classes, 3 classes, it doesn't take very long, so you know who are the best.
Very beginning, I think.
In the beginning. So this is my plan, and I've been suggesting this for about 5 years now, and I've had some very, very good feedback. The problem, every class is mixed ability, right? There's no point of pretending it's not. So you have the problem, do I play to my best students? Do I teach for my poor students? What do you do? Well, every so often, this is what you can do, okay? Okay, say 30, you've got 30 students in the class. You identify the 10 who you think are the best. Some of them maybe not that good, but you need 10. And you name them and you say, will the following students come and see me after the class? And they get very nervous because if the teacher says, come and see me, I must have done something wrong, okay? But when they get there, you say, you are the best students in the class. They go, oh, it's a very nice feeling for the teacher to tell you that. Yes, in fact, it's even good if you say, you know, you're better at English than I was at your age. Wow, what a fantastic feeling. So now they're going to go, I can just sit back and relax for the rest of the year. No, you can't. You have a responsibility. They go, oh dear, what's that? In future, when I say get into groups of 3, you 10 stand up and you walk around and you make a group with 2 other students. I go, okay, this is giving them the responsibility. This is devolving the responsibility from you
Get
to
them
them.
in charge of something.
Putting them in charge, exactly. Putting the good student, and they go, what? But they get used to the idea. And the first time it works is wonderful. Okay, get into groups of 3. Suddenly these 10 students stand up and they go, what's going on? And they go and make groups with 2. Why groups of 3 and not pairs? Because the 2 other students, they can be bad together, you know. If you put them in pairs, then the bad student feels bad. It's a really good idea. So at some point in the class, tell the top third of your students that you need their help. Say that when there's group work, tell them they're going to organize it. Organize groups of 3 and encourage them to help others. And this is important as well. Allow them to speak to each other in their own language in the groups if they're getting some task ready. Because people like me, native speakers, often say, you must speak English at all time in the classroom. I think it's important the teacher does. But the students working together in a group, maybe they need to speak Arabic to each other just to make sure. Huh?
Yeah, Franco-Arabic, I mean, they shift sometimes.
Okay, well, but the point is, once they're in the groups, if you say, just speak English, there's often silence. I'd like to give you a little example from Spain. I worked in Spain for a long time, and I was at a conference where a woman, a Spanish native speaker, said to people, and there were me and a couple of other English people, she says, people like you are a problem. You come to these conferences and you tell us to speak English all the time. My students want to speak to each other in Spanish to help them with the task, not just to talk about football, right? So she played, this is a long time, she played a cassette. Remember cassettes? Yeah. She put a cassette on the table when she asked them to get into groups. And she played an example of what happened. And I'll tell you in Spanish and I'll translate it as well. So she played the tape. This is what happened when I put my students in groups. And she played the tape. And the first person who spoke was her. And she said, I want you to make a list of places where people work. And then one of the children said, ¿Qué tenemos que hacer? What do we have to do? Absolutely classic. One person in the group will always say, what do we have to do? The second one said, tenemos que hacer una lista de trabajos, which means we have to make a list of jobs. And the third one, who had a very sweet voice, went, no, creo que no, with a very sweet little voice. I don't think so. Creo que tenemos que hacer una lista de lugares de trabajo. Isn't my Spanish wonderful?
It seems.
Places where people work. No, this is important. I'm not just doing this show I speak Spanish. He said, I think we have to make a list of places where people work. So the first one went, oh, voy a preguntar al profe. I'm going to ask the teacher. He said, profe, profesor, short for professor. She said, yes. He said, ¿Qué tenemos que hacer? She said, ask me in English. Okay. What we have to do. Okay. I love that jota sound in Spanish. It comes from Arabic, doesn't it? Yeah? I love that sound in Spanish. Spanish is so much more interesting than speaking French or Italian because of that sound. Beautiful, wonderful, love it. So where was? So he said, speak to me in English. He said, what do we have to do? She said, you have to make a list of places where people work. And the third one said, ha, tenía razón, I was right, you see. They were speaking Spanish, but they were working. They were working on the task. So they can sometimes speak their own language. But the important thing here, as a teacher, you're always providing the input. It's tiring. You're using a lot of energy. Somehow transfer that energy requirement to the students, okay? So the message is responsibility. You're giving responsibility to those top students. And they will feel engaged and they will feel motivated. And hopefully it will motivate the other students as well. So, that was number 3. What's number 4? Teach unplugged. Teach unplugged. What does that mean? Unplugged, like taking the plug out. Wireless. Do you know this expression, teach unplugged? Let me show you. Do you know who this man is? Anybody recognize him? What?
Students who are out of the church.
He is a famous person in my business. Here's another famous person in my business. His name is Scott Thornbury, and his name is Luke Meddings. And they have written a book called Teaching Unplugged. And this book is all about teaching without a textbook. Teaching without a course book. Going into a classroom and working with the language that the students can use and need. Okay? So the book, the idea is the book gets in the way of of what the students need. Now, don't worry about this. I don't agree with this as a total idea. But it's known as dogma. Dogma ELT. Dogma, this word here came from a Danish film group of film directors who made films in real time. So that's where the word comes from. But Dogma ELT has 3 basic principles. You don't have a lot of books. It starts with the conversation from the class, and it deals in emergent language. The idea being, you listen to what the students say, and you hear from that what they want to say, and you help them by adding. The example that Scott gives, the first man I showed, he went to watch a class in Mexico, and the teacher came in and said, "Good morning, class."
Good morning.
Like a nice Mexican class. He said, "Did you have a nice weekend?"
Yeah, of course.
"Jose, did you have a nice weekend?" And Jose said, "Yes, I've had a very nice weekend." "What did you do?" He said, "I got married." He said, "Really?" Open your books at page 26, you see. So that's the idea. You miss a chance. Even if you're using a course book. Some teachers worry that they're going to get into trouble if they don't follow the course book, if they do that. Now, I wasn't sure about this whole idea until last year I became a language student. Last year I went to night school to study this language. Which language is that?
German.
German. Der letzte Jahr, ich musste ein bisschen Deutsch lernen, weil ich möchte... Do you understand any German? Okay, I'll explain in English then. Last year I went to a wedding in Germany between my Spanish nephew, who by complete coincidence is in Sharjah today. He works for a lighting company. I'm hoping to meet him at some point. My Spanish nephew, no, he's working today, unfortunately. He's not on holiday. I just got a text. I said, "Can you come here?" He said, "No, I'll meet you at your hotel. Our hotel is in Dubai." So my Spanish nephew was getting married to his German girlfriend, and they wanted me to do 2 things. 1, make a speech, and 2, write a song in German and Spanish. I said, "Oh, thanks." So we wrote a song in German and Spanish, we sang it at the wedding, and I made a speech. Now I understand my requirement as a language learner is a bit strange. Not many people go to learn a language because they want to make a speech at a wedding. I didn't expect the teacher to just use me as the model of somebody to help. However, this is Bamberg, where the beautiful city where the wedding was, and I got my book. Willkommen, welcome. I thought, this is perfect. It says, "Ich liebe dich," I love you, on the front, okay? On a chocolate cake. Perfect for a wedding. It must be some good wedding stuff in here. But the teacher was wonderful. She had a lovely voice, very nice manner, but she was completely focused on her course outline. And her course outline was completely taken from that book. And all the time we were there, we did nothing apart from things in the book. And I'm sorry, it was a bit boring. The first one was to talk about past holidays. Almost everybody else in the room had only ever been to Spain or France. I've been to 47 countries in my life, and I felt embarrassed about talking about them. Ja, ich habe zweimal in Japan besuchen. I've been twice to Japan. And they were going, "Really? I've only ever been to Spain once." And I was going, "This is hopeless. I feel embarrassed here." But the second unit was about health and illness. I looked around at the rest of the class on the first day. I was almost the youngest person in the room. There were 2 women who were 85. I thought, I do not want to talk to those women about their health and their illness. You know, you can see the problem. As you're student going, this is, you know. So, and the next one, I don't want to talk about the weather. The British talk about the weather all the time when they have nothing else to talk about. Okay, telephone, that's useful. Using a telephone. Actually, it was very simple. Hallo? Ja, ich bin Ken. That's quite easy. You know? Yes, I'm Ken. And to write a CV, well, it's too late for me. I'm not looking for a job. And to talk about German speaking countries. The point about this is, when you use a book, it has a syllabus in it. If you don't move away from the syllabus, the students don't feel that involved. Okay? So the message is, sometimes when you're teaching, something happens. Like Jose, in that case in Mexico, getting married the previous weekend. Something might happen that takes you away from your plan. So abandon the plan and follow it for a while. And a lot of teachers get worried. If my director of studies, if the head teacher finds out that we're talking about this, she may get angry. Well, you know, 5 minutes is not a problem. And students will feel more involved. Okay, everybody all right? Right. So, The idea behind that, occasionally, is that sometimes you don't do what's in the book. It's an easy thing, and it keeps the students more interested. Number 5, let them use their technology and their tech skills. How many students in your class have a smartphone?
Many.
Are they allowed to bring them? Trust your students. Are you serious?
They keep chatting all the time.
Can you imagine how much money was invested in the technology in their pockets? I've got an OK Mac with an OK machine here, maybe total price $2,500 or something. In their pockets is technology worth tens of thousands of dollars. This is a big change. In the pockets of your students is technology worth a lot more than the technology in the classroom. Okay, why not use it? This is a famous American academic. His name is Mark Prensky. And he was the person who gave us the expression digital immigrants and digital natives. Have you ever heard those expressions?
Yes.
Digital natives are basically technology is made for anybody up to the age of 17, right? If you're up to the age of 17, the technology around you is easy. Over 17, and it becomes a nightmare, you know? And so basically, digital immigrants, has he got it on here somewhere? No, it's not there. But a digital immigrant are people like us. We're trying to understand the technology. But what he says is this technology is really useful. He made a speech at a conference 3 years ago. He said, how many people have smartphones? And quite a number. He says, okay, please do not switch off your phone. And I thought he was joking. You know, I thought he's just being funny. So I switched off my phone. But he wasn't joking, because after about 20 minutes he says, okay, question for you. Phone's on. What is the weather like in Los Angeles? And after about 5 seconds we said, it's sunny. Now, that's not a very special piece of information, but it showed that the teacher can actually ask the students to find some information on their phones. Think about it, okay? But you have to have a contract. I want you to bring your phones tomorrow. Great. But if I catch you playing a game or looking at Facebook or something, that's it. End of chance. That's the only chance you will get. Tomorrow bring your phones in and I will give you a task, as long as you can get an online signal in your classroom. I'll give you a task which will involve the phone. If any of you start using your phones to look at Facebook or something, that's the end of the contract. It's easy, okay? So do it with them once. Add a Google moment. Number 6. Let your students use their imagination. Okay, we're coming to the end, don't worry, not too many more now. Let your students use their imagination. This should be obvious. But you know, I write course books. I sit and watch other people teaching, okay? In Spain again, another example from Spain, I watched an American woman. She was brilliant. Her students loved her. She worked in a private language school in Madrid, the capital of Spain, and she had the most wonderful voice. She was very theatrical. You know, it was her style. It was her style. I don't recommend her style to anybody else. She went, oh, Ken, hi, my name's Dolores. I'm going to do a class about the second conditional. And I thought, students don't usually get excited when you talk about grammar, okay? Especially if you name it, if you name grammar. She said, I'm going to go in, I'm going to say, today we're doing the second. I thought, oh, that should be interesting. So I sat at the back. She walked in, she went, hello. She's like a Hollywood movie star, this woman, you know, lots of blonde hair. And everyone went, hello. She said, today, kids, so exciting, we're going to do the second conditional. And they went, yes. I don't know what you're talking about, but it sounds great, you know. I thought, this is amazing. I've really never seen anything like this. I couldn't do that, you know. I can't sell grammar like that. She said, this is what happens, okay. If I had $1 million, I don't have $1 million. I'm a teacher. You know, if I had $1 million, I'd buy a new coat. I'd buy a yacht. I'd buy a new house. And she went about 19 examples. And then she said, any more examples? And we went, no, you have all the good ones. You see the problem? She's a great teacher, but she did not let them. Don't spoon feed. Don't spoon feed the information. Spoon feeding. If you give too much information, you're spoon feeding and you're not allowing the students to use their own imagination. Spoon feeding in the long run teaches us nothing except the shape of the spoon. I love that quotation. It's from E.M. Forster, the novelist.
Yes.
And teachers like you say, people like you always say, let the students use their imagination. My students are quite low level. They don't have any imagination. Well, of course they have imagination. Maybe they don't have the language in English to be imaginative in English. So let's find a simple task for them. Okay? I like that quote. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Albert Einstein.
Is this a real picture
Huh?
or Photoshop? This is a real
No,
picture?
no, it's a genuine picture of Albert Einstein with his tongue hanging out. It's a bit strange. Now, look, I'm going to tell you a story. It's a very strange story. Something would never happen in the UAE, but just read the story and I'll show you what we do with it afterwards. It's called Doctors and Nurses. At the hospital near where I live, all the doctors are women and all the nurses are men. Wow, it's strange, eh? When new patients arrive at the hospital, they always call the doctors nurses. In other words, they walk up to a woman and say, "Hello, nurse," right? Which makes the nurses feel quite annoyed. And they also call the nurses doctors, which makes the nurses feel quite pleased. Okay, clear so far? One day at the hospital, a patient, a man, approached the doctor. "Excuse me, nurse," said the patient, "when can I see the doctor?" "Listen," said the doctor, "I'm a doctor. And the man over there that you think is a doctor is actually a student nurse." "Oh, sorry," said the patient. "The last time I came to this hospital, that nurse said that you were a nurse." "Well, I'm not. I'm a doctor, not a nurse." "Well, once again, sorry about that," said the patient. "By the way, what's your name?" "Nurse," said the doctor. "Doctor Nurse." There's the problem. Okay? But now let's go back to the beginning. This is a typical text from an English teaching book written by somebody like me, a teacher who's turned into an author. It's very strong on narrative. It's all story and there's no description. So when I find a story like this, I say to the students, right, it's in the book. I'm going to ask you some questions about this text, but the answers are not in the book. They're not in the text. Students are very suspicious about this, right? So they look at it very carefully. I said, no, the answers aren't there. For example, at the hospital near it, where is the hospital? Now, I did this with some Hungarian class a few years ago. Wonderful class. Hungarians are very interesting people. Anybody been to Hungary? It's a very small country, 10 million people, but they have 22 Nobel Prize winners in science. Very brainy people, okay? So the students are very, very brainy and they're very difficult. And also Hungarians, when they speak English, they speak like this. "Hello, my name is Tamás, I come from Hungary." They start very high and they finish very low. Both in Hungarian and in English. "Teljes a kávár kérek szépen, köszönöm szépen." Okay? That was Hungarian, that part, okay? So I had these 16-year-old children, teenagers, I'd given them this text. And I said, right, so I'm going to ask you some questions, the answer not on the page. Where is the hospital? And this boy said, near where I live. Near where you live? Near where you live. I said, no, it isn't near where I live. I don't know. I said, well, I don't know. He said, if you don't know, how can I know? Trust me, nobody knows. The person who wrote this is not here, right? But let's assume it's in English, it's in an English-speaking country. So where is this hospital? Yeah, but where is it? Huh?
England.
Huh? Thank you. It's in England. Where in England?
Let's square. Manchester, maybe.
Manchester, my hometown. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Now, so the rest of us who say, how did he know it's Manchester? I said, because it's your story. They go, okay, and they're still a bit suspicious. Because students always think there's one right answer, whatever the question is. What's the past tense of take? There is only one right answer, took. But where is this hospital? There's 10,000 possible answers. You have to explain the difference. So now we know the hospital is in Manchester. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it an old hospital or a new hospital?
New.
It's a new hospital. How old is it? When was it built? 2005. Thank you very much. I've got two answers from this very, very good student here. Problem is now, everything's okay, she's going to answer all the questions. That's great, you've answered two questions, now stumm for a moment, okay? Right, sorry, when was it built? 2005. So how old is it?
8 years.
8 years old. How many floors? Come on, I want some answers. Stop listening to them. 7 floors, thank you. How many beds in the hospital? How many? 320 beds in the hospital. How many doctors?
20.
4. How many? 40. 40 doctors. How many nurses? 80. Okay. You see, now you understand. You just throw out an answer. So then we go on to the next part. A patient. Now we know he's a man. And I said to these kids, he's really old. He's very, very old. How old is he? They said 30. Oh, really, really, really old. 32. How old is he? 80. And what's wrong with him? We need a name. We need a name for this man. What's his name?
Sir John.
What's his name?
Michael.
Michael what?
Michael Johnson.
Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson. Okay, 80 years old. Michael Johnson, the runner. No, he's 80 years old. His name is Michael Johnson. What's wrong with him?
He's
a backache.
Huh?
Backache. He
He
has
says backache. Thank you. He's got backache. He's got 3 things wrong with him. What else? Nothing horrible. High blood pressure. Very good for a 14-year-old student who knows high blood pressure. So he's got backache. He's got high blood pressure.
Sugar.
He had a heart attack.
Diabetic.
Poor man. Okay. And what about the doctor? What about the doctor? We know the doctor's a woman. Do we know her name? Yes, we do. Her family name is Nurse. What's her first name? Huh? What? Jamie. Gemma Nurse. I like Gemma Nurse. And how old is she?
32.
30. Your students will say she's 21. Now, what do you do if your students say 21? No, you can't be. No. It's okay. It's their story. If you say, no, she can't be a doctor when she's 21, okay, that's my last contribution. No, this is important. This is important. If your students in an activity like this, you get the idea now. Your students will get the idea very quickly and they'll shout things out. How old is the doctor? She's 21. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, she's 21. And now your homework, you have to write the big story with all this information. A patient whose name is, what's his name? How old is he?
80.
And what's wrong with him? It's so much better when this information comes from you. You see? You provide the information. Just using your simple imagination. It's not difficult. That's a way to use your imagination. Okay. Another important thing is to take a break. I don't mean say, goodbye class, I'm going to sit in the staff room with my feet up and a cup of coffee. Inside the classroom, you need to stop being the person providing all the information. Somehow you have to find ways that you can make things happen where the students are in charge. So here's an example. Right, I'd like you to be my volunteer. Okay? Come and volunteer for me. Hooray! Mind your head on this if you're very tall. Right. We're both okay. Right. Now watch this. You're 14 years old, okay? Yes. But I want you to be you to start with. You, okay? So I'm going to ask you 4 questions, all right? What's your name?
Ahmed.
What nationality are you?
Egyptian.
Where do you live?
Sharjah.
And what do you do?
A teacher of math.
A maths?
Yes.
Are you? A maths teacher? Yes. How exciting is that? Right. All right, now, good. Now, I want you to be somebody else, not a famous person, just another person with a different answer to all those questions. Every answer must be different, okay?
Yes.
What's your name?
Ahmed. Sorry. Muhammad.
Okay, why don't you go away from the Arab world? Okay, go outside into the big world. Don't give him.
Tunisia.
No. I want you to get outside the Arab world.
Yes.
So what's your name?
John.
Shush.
Messi.
I said not a real person. Not Lionel Messi.
Jeff.
Smith. Not a real person. Just a name from the outside of the rest of the world. Any name. Not a real person. James. Thank you. What nationality are you, James?
USA.
From America. You're from America. Where do you live?
Washington.
Washington. And what do you do?
Engineer.
You're an engineer. Excellent. This is James. He's American. He lives in Washington. He's an engineer. Ask him questions about himself.
He's nothing.
Questions.
Are you married?
Yes.
Never mind, are you
have
married?
children?
Ask him about him.
Do you have children?
Okay. There's a question over here. James.
Where are you working? Which company?
which company أي شركة راح شو مدرس رياضة شباب
National Congress.
Excellent, excellent. Very good.
Which car do you drive? He's an engineer. What type of engineer you are?
عملت إيه يعني
What
عملت إيه
type of engineer? Okay, are you an
تخصص شو تخصص؟
civil engineer or electrical?
Building.
مدرس رياضة يا شباب
How old are you, James?
بشويش عليه
Question. If I were a visitor to Washington, where would you might need to go? What are the places of attraction?
أنا كنت زهقان فاضي
بشويش عليه
تفرط يا عرب.
White House. Yes.
وما لقى غير هو
الله يسامحك يا سيفا.
Okay, Jane, afterward, ask somebody else to join you. Ask another person.
خلي واحد يطلع معايا عشان يزعل يطلع انت عشان يزعل
Why do you select them in picture?
Join it.
I will translate for him.
Now, Ahmed, ask him the questions, the 4 questions.
اسأله 4 أسئلة بقى
First question.
What's your name?
Muhammad.
What's your
Real
job?
name.
Egyptian, like you.
Not how old are you? No. What's your name? Where are you from? Where do you live?
What's your job?
I live in Sharjah.
What do you do? What do you do?
What's your job?
I am an English teacher.
Right. Same questions again. Different person. Away from the Arab world, in the big world.
Again ask me
Ask questions.
I'm going to ask him. What's your name?
No.
He asked you again. He will ask you again.
What's your name?
Tom.
Your job?
دكتور
Your age?
Sorry, what nationality are you? Oh, he didn't ask you. What did he ask you?
He asking me about my name, my job,
Right.
and how old
No, not how old. What nationality are you?
He didn't ask me about my
I know.
nationality.
What nationality are you?
I am English.
Where do you live?
From England. I live in England, London.
In London. Thank you. So now we have Tom, the doctor who lives in London, England. Don't make the questions too difficult for him, okay? Right, so thank you, Ahmed. Sit down. Tom, you're in charge now. So, questions to Tom, the doctor.
Dr. Tom, what specialty are you?
Pediatrician.
What? Sorry?
Pediatrician for babies.
Pediatrician.
Yes, pediatrician.
Administration.
Pediatrician.
Pediatrician.
Babies.
Baby.
Babies,
You're a
yes.
baby doctor.
Baby doctors. I can
Pediatrician.
Pediatrician. Sorry.
Yes.
More questions.
Have you cured Ken Wilson before?
Sorry?
Have you cured him before?
I didn't remember him exactly.
Come on, you're being difficult. Ask some simple questions. He's a doctor, he's a baby doctor, he lives in London.
Yeah, what do you think? Okay, what is the most common illness or disease? Something you see children come to you.
He's running nose. So you should take care about high temperature. Often put them in anywhere or any bathroom to give some water.
But usually you recommend them
For babies? Yes, for babies, it's very. Babies, what I can say, they are very wonderful creature. You should take care of them very much. They are very clever, even though some people think that the children or babies are not intelligent at all, but they may think better than us. But they cannot express themselves.
Question here.
Why are you here? Are you here? I'm here.
Don't answer a ridiculous question. We've got a real question here. Tom, we have a real question here.
Yeah, what do you think about, let's say, medicine? Is it interesting job for you? Or what do you think according to teaching and, let's say, medicine as a doctor? Do you think that doctor, or is it better than that? Do you interest with your job, let's say?
Of course, I interest my job, and I appreciate the role of any doctor in any part in the world.
You love it, that
Yes, I love it. Also like a teacher.
What do you do for fun?
Why I select this one?
What do you do for fun?
For fun. Yes, in fact, I like sightseeing.
Sightseeing.
Brilliant. Take a seat. Okay, that was brilliant. Well done, Tom. Well done, Ahmed. Very good. The point about that was then, in a normal class, you're not a normal class, you're a noisy class, you're a very badly behaved, no, you're a wonderful class, okay. But you're kind of big, and also you're talking to each other about this as a teaching thing. But what I do, I sit over there, and I watched this happening, and it was, remember, he stood up, then he interviewed him. I would then ask Tom, Mohammed to interview somebody else. I'd watch 4 or 5 people. I would not say a word. They've got responsibility for the class, and I'm watching them make all kinds of mistakes. And mistakes are good. If I don't give them this chance, I don't hear the mistakes. I don't have a chance to correct them at a later date. See the idea? Yeah. Let them take over with an activity like that. Very important. So when I say take a break, I don't mean put your feet on the desk and go to sleep. I mean sit and watch your students doing things together. Okay. We've just done that. Be someone else. Right. Now, this is again, it should be obvious. It's helpful if you can find out what your students are good at. For example, drawing. I've watched so many teachers trying to draw a crocodile or something on the board. I know somewhere in that class there's a student who can do that drawing better. So particularly find out at any age, adults, children, teenagers, find out if they can draw, because they can do the drawing for you. But also what they know. I want to tell you a story now. The little story first. I was doing a course in Spain much more recently than when I lived there, and I said, it's very helpful if you can find out something about your students. It may come in useful. And one teacher said, I do that all the time now, because 2 years ago, I was watching television, and I saw one of my students in a semi-professional tennis tournament. I didn't even know he could play tennis. His name was Emilio Sanchez. He became a small-time professional tennis player. His sister, you may have heard of, Arantxa Sanchez, she was in the Wimbledon finals. She was a very, very good player. But he said, I realized I didn't know enough about my students. So he made an effort to find out more. But that's about what they, But here's something else. About 10 years ago, I was doing research for a book. Do you know that kind of writing? Can you see that? It's not Roman script. It's called Cyrillic. Where do you see that kind of writing? Which kind of country? Do you know?
Ukraine.
Very good. Have you been to my talk before?
No.
That's absolutely right. It could be Russia, or it could be Ukraine, right? It could be Serbia. It's actually a city called Lviv in Ukraine. And I went to Lviv in western Ukraine, again, to research a book. I went to watch some classes. Lviv has a lot of different names. Look at these names. Lviv, Lvov, Lvov. Lemberg, that's the German name. Leopolis is the Greek name. It's one of those cities that's been invaded from the east, invaded from the west. It's a beautiful, beautiful city in western Ukraine. Very, very lovely. Okay. But it has one small problem, which is that they get a power cut almost every day. The electricity goes off, poof, like that, no warning. Not an easy place to be a teacher, or indeed to be in an elevator in a hotel. But the point is, when a publisher wants an author to watch a class, this is what normally happens. The publisher telephones the head teacher and says, is it okay if I bring an author to watch a class in your school? And the head teacher, especially in a country like Ukraine, which doesn't have a lot of money for education, says, what are you going to give me? And they'll say, I'll give you 20 books. Okay, good deal. You give me 20 books, and I will allow your author to sit in a class and watch one of my teachers. That's fine. But then she goes to the staff room, and she points at the teacher and says, you will have an Englishman sitting in your class next week. And that's difficult. The poor woman going, oh, okay. So the week goes along. She's worrying about me sitting in the class. I'm aware of this, okay? So when I sit at the back of the class, I smile all the time, and I don't make any notes. If you make notes, teachers think you're making a note about something bad. So never make a note. I'm a very good author to sit quietly at the back of a class and watch the class at work. So I go to the school in Lviv. I walk into the front door of the school. A woman comes up to me and she says, good morning, Mr. Wilson, my name is Natasha Vasiliuk. I'm the head teacher of the school. She shook hands with me and all the lights went out. That's a clever trick. How did you do that? She said, oh dear, a power cut. So we walked up the stairs in the dark. Suddenly it's dark. It was a grey day outside, very dark in the school. We start going down a corridor, right? In the window of the classrooms, I see the children taking out a candle. a candle from underneath their desk and lighting the candle so they can see to write. Because it happens every day, so they have a candle ready. And it looked rather nice. English by candlelight. Looks very, very nice, you know. I go to the end of the corridor. We open the door. There's a woman, she's about my height, lots of blonde hair. She's holding a cassette in her hand. I walk through the door. Does she say, "Good morning, Mr. Wilson, how are you?" No, she went, "Yeah!" like that. Because she wanted to use the cassette. And there's no power. There's a power cut. I'm not stupid. I understand the problem. So I walked up to her very slowly. I said, "Don't worry. If you run out of things to do, I will take the rest of the class." She said, "Thank you so much." A very strong Russian accent, you know. And she said, "Children, good morning. This is Mr. Wilson. He's the teacher." And she sat down. What? And they were saying, "Hey," they went, they could see my problem as well. So the thing is, I thought, well, I'll use this opportunity to talk to these kids about the English-speaking world, anybody they know in the English-speaking world. So I said, "Good morning, my name's Ken. I'm writing a book. Maybe in 2 years' time you will use my book." In fact, they did 2 years later. Okay? So tell me, who in the English-speaking world have you heard of? I expected they would say David Beckham. Everybody's heard of David Beckham. I don't like writing about David Beckham. I think he's a very nice man, a very good father. He's a nice father to his sons, but he keeps changing his hair, right? So you take a photograph of David Beckham, you put it in the book, and the next year he cuts his hair off.
Stylish, man.
It's really annoying, you know? And they keep having more children. They've got 4 children. So you put, Victoria Beckham has 4 children. The book comes out, she gets pregnant again. So it's not a good idea to write about real people. So I said to them, who in the English-speaking world have you heard of? And this boy said, Queen Elizabeth I. I went, what? Is it Queen Elizabeth I? He said, yes. I said, you don't mean Queen Elizabeth II, the one we have now? He said, no, Queen Elizabeth I, 1558 to 1603. He knew the years that she was queen. Everybody in the class went, what? You know, and he said, I like history. His parents were history teachers. Every book in his house when he was growing up was full of English kings and queens, American presidents. He knew all the American presidents. He knew all the emperors of China. Now this is a bit unusual, but in your class there's often people with some really interesting information. You're an English teacher. You don't necessarily know a lot about geography or history or kings of England, you see. So it's fantastic to find somebody in your class. In Ukraine, when I spoke to this teacher afterwards, I said, it must be fantastic to have a boy like him in your class. You can ask him questions. She said, we can't. We're not allowed in our system to ask our students any questions for factual information. I mean, I don't know what the system is here, but that's a poor system. You know, your students are full of information, often just about sport, okay? Your students know more about sport, the boys anyway. But it's incredible, the information that your students have. So find it. Find out what they know, find out what they're good at. Number 9. Oh, what's this? Another wheel. We had a wheel earlier, didn't we?
Yeah.
What did we say that piece is called?
Spokes.
That piece of metal there is called a spoke. This, for me, is an image of a classroom with the teacher there and everybody in a relationship with the teacher. And this is what happens in a spoke classroom. What is the capital of France?
Paris.
Paris. No, you all said it. Well done. But I said Paris. Thank you very much. I repeated his answer. Why did I repeat his answer? Because I know that those of them behind him, they're looking at the back of his head. They can't hear the answer. So I repeat the answer for you. That's not good. Because it means that you just rely on me for all the information. What's the capital of Argentina?
Buenos Aires.
Fantastic. Correct. Did you hear what he said? And you're still looking at me. Because you're still expecting that kind of relationship, right? I don't want you to have that kind of relationship. He's the one who knows. Ask him. Don't look at me. He's the one who knows. So can you stand up and tell them?
Yes. Who would like to ask?
You're being a very good teacher now, but you're only 14 years old. You're a bit nervous about this. I've asked you to stand up and face. Ask him now.
Answer again?
Yes, but he asked me about the capital for Argentina, Buenos Aires, I think. Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires. Well done. Thank you very much. Now, this is a very small thing, but it really stops students relying on the teacher for all the information when that information has come from a student. It should not be the case that I'm relaying information from the students. So you need to turn your class into a spider's web. You see, those relationships are still there, but the relationship with each other is strong as well, okay? It's a little thing, but just encourage the students to listen to each other when they've answered a question. At first they go, but eventually the students realize that you're treating their information as important as your own. We've almost finished. Almost finished. Do you remember at the beginning, there's a spider web, do you remember at the beginning, the Hungarian academic, Zoltán Dernier, what was his number one thing about motivation?
Make them curious.
No, that was mine. What was before that? Yes, be enthusiastic. And although I started by saying it's difficult to be enthusiastic every day, being enthusiastic is quite important. You know, do you know this woman? You probably don't.
Mrs. Mandela.
It's not Mrs. Mandela. It's not Oprah Winfrey. Most people think it's Oprah Winfrey or Winnie Mandela. Her name is Maya Angelou. She's an American novelist. But look at this for a quotation. I love this quotation. I've learned that people may forget what you said, they may forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. For a teacher, this is incredibly important. If you go into a classroom looking like that in the morning, okay, then the students are going to say, okay, good morning. They presume, each individual student presumes they've done something wrong. That's the way students are. It's not helpful. However you feel, you may be feeling terrible, but don't. Walk in with a smile. A smile costs nothing. And you get so much back from a smile. You get so much back from a smile because people realize that you're there, you're going to try and help them. And 50 years later, they will remember. Tell you a quick story. I'm almost finished. But last year, I went to a grammar school 50 years ago in a city near Manchester called Salford Grammar School. And my two much older brothers are on the committee of the Old Boys Committee. I love that, Old Boys. You know, some of these guys are 90 years old, but they're called Old Boys, former pupils of the school. Every year they have a dinner. And every year I avoid going to the dinner because I don't like sitting in a room full of men shouting and making a lot of noise. It's not my idea of fun. But every year they ask me to go and make a speech at the Old Boys dinner because I speak. It's my job. They say, come on, making a speech will be easy. So I thought, okay, I'll go and make a speech. What will I talk about? I'll talk about teachers. And I divided teachers simply into three types. The teachers who inspire you, who make you feel good about yourself. The teachers who make you feel frightened. I hope that doesn't happen anymore these days. And the teachers you completely forget. The teachers you cannot remember. Is it, don't you remember that geography teacher called Mr. Simpson? No, not at all. So forget about those. The teachers who inspire you. I told a story about a teacher who inspired me. There were 260 men in this room. Probably about half of them remembered him, and they were very excited remembering the name of this man 50 years after he was their teacher. 50 years later, they were smiling and remembering this wonderful man. That's incredible that they remembered him half a century after he was their teacher. But for the second group, now in my day, if you were bad, they could hit you with a shoe. Your teachers could hit you with a shoe. It's not nice. It's not a pleasant experience, right? But even without that, some of the teachers in my school, they frightened me. You walked into the room and something about their behavior. So I said, after telling the story about the teacher who made us happy, I said, however, there was a music teacher. I'm not going to give his name. That's what I said in my speech. I'm not going to give his name. Somebody immediately shouted the man's name, right? And I said, I'm not going to say who it is. They said, come on! And a lot of them shouted this man's name. And I told the story about, we were given a book. We had to put some brown paper on the book to cover it. I forgot. He hit me, right, with a shoe. And at the end of the speech, these people were saying, that man should never have been a teacher. 50 years later, the negative result of that man's teaching was still inside these people. So let's forget about people like that. Let's remember a simple thing like a smile. 50 years from now, your students will remember that you smiled when you walked into the classroom. I know it sounds simple, but that's, for me, is still an important motivating factor, to be enthusiastic. So those are my 10. As I say, if you want to download this PowerPoint, then you go to my blog. This is my blog. It's called kenwilsonelt.wordpress.com. That's what it looks like when you get there. There's me. There's me giving a talk. And what happens now? If you go to the right-hand column, which is welcome to my blog, go to the right-hand column, okay, take a picture of that if you want, you will find this, free downloads. I've got some short stories, some sketches, some songs, some audio files of some songs that I've written for teaching. Take a talk PowerPoints. This is the one, okay. And then open that, you'll see, it says Dubai. I'm sorry, I know we're in Sharjah. It says British Council Dub, BC Dub. That is the PowerPoint for this talk, okay. So you can download the PowerPoint. You're very welcome to use those images in your classroom. You can do what you want.